All right, so since this year's theme is Earth, we decided to look into our own home, which is New York City, and this is the question that we had in mind, like how does climate change affect low-income neighborhoods in New York City? And through the data, we can see that annual temperature in New York City is rising, but how are different neighborhoods in New York City affected by the rising temperatures? So when we look at the data from Landsat, we can see there's these pockets of heat in these neighborhoods, and these are called the urban heat island effect. And I'll take.
Yeah. So what is the urban heat island effect exactly? So it's found in environments with a lot of concrete, asphalts, roads, pavements, and so on and so forth. The environment absorbs the heat from the sun and re-emits that energy as heat. And so there's not enough vegetation to alleviate that problem, which results in higher temperature averages, especially in summer months. So what are the hottest neighborhoods in New York City? We found out that the Bronx and Brooklyn has the highest surface temperatures. So how does that correlate to income level? So we can see that certain pockets of neighborhoods in Bronx and Brooklyn have some of the lowest median household income levels in New York City. So how does the urban heat island effect specifically impact low-income neighborhoods? In general, excessive exposure to high heat can cause increased rates of heat stroke and just heat-associated mortalities in general. So, low-income people are especially vulnerable because of their lack of public access to air conditioners, more urban development due to gentrification, and poor housing quality in general. So what can we do exactly? So we suggest adding more green spaces to low-income neighborhoods. A study in Chicago showed that vegetated areas provide relief from the heat island effect caused by the heat trapping qualities of asphalt, concrete, and so on. So how would addressing the ecological impact of this phenomenon improve the quality of life in low-income neighborhoods? So we suggested urban farming in particular. There are already organizations out there leading this effort to educate people on urban farming, and better nutrition, and even managing a farmer's market such as Green Gorilla. So why urban farming in particular? We found out that in low-income neighborhoods, they are plagued by food inaccessibility, and according to NYC.gov's definition, it's a lack of access to good nutritional foods for all members of that household. And this is the data that we found in food insecurity in New York City. As you can see from previous correlations that we've tabulated, Brooklyn and the Bronx have the highest amount of food insecurity in the city. So let's talk about the positive impacts of urban farming. It increases food security, increases job creation and economic empowerment, decreases health risks, and minimizing the need for transportation from other farms. So what in particular? So throughout this hackathon, we were trying to come up with different solutions to solve this problem in particular. However, we found out that it's so much big of a problem to solve beyond the time of a hackathon. So we provided these solutions here. So we came up with these 3 ideas here. Providing more data that shows positive benefits for urban farming, working with established organizations to expand their programs to other urbanized areas in New York City and beyond, and creating an online platform that helps connect these organizations to share their proven methods of success and encourage people to mobilize in their own communities globally.
So, just to end, we didn't come up with any. Yeah, we didn't come up with any solutions. But I think all the things that we've learned in the past 36 hours during this hackathon, I think these are important questions that we can ask ourselves when we are planning the next generation sustainable cities. So.
Yeah, food insecurity affects 1 of 5 households in America. So this is a huge issue, and it's pretty easy to overlook because food insecurity is like kind of a vague term. Or like, wait, was that really? It's hard to. It's a very specifically defined term. So I like that you guys identified that. And urban farming has a lot of benefits, even beyond food security. If you guys are going to take this kind of research next step further, I'd love to see you explore sea level change and see how that's going to impact some of those areas as well. I would say that some of the wealthiest parts of New York are probably going to become some of the greatest parts of Atlantis in the future. So, how does that impact the planning and the future of New York City? I think it's a cool next step for you guys to take if you're going to continue this research.
I think what you have here is a great concept, and I think that getting there in 36 hours is itself remarkable, because the topic that you've considered is something that's being discussed. I know we do it extensively at NASA. I work with NOAA a lot on the urban heat island effect, and I had a chance to talk to you on Friday, and I mean, just to see that you got from urban heat island effect, looking at the particularly vulnerable populations that are being affected by it, and how you can tie in the food security problem to find a comprehensive solution that addresses all of these challenges together. I think that's wonderful. Do you have any, I know you've identified the solutions. Do you have any plans on the future as to where you're going to take the project?
Well, to be honest, we were coming up with an actual solution that we could show and demonstrate to everyone. But the organization that we pointed out, Green Girls, they already had that idea implemented word for word for what we were planning.
Which I think brought up the idea of that last point, because this thing already exists and we didn't know about it, and it didn't. We literally found that out at 8 p.m. last night because we have all of this thing that we wanted to present, but we don't want to present something that already exists. So
yeah.
I think that's the reason that we didn't just back out from the presentation itself, because we were thinking about doing that, is because I think it's just important to do the presentation anyway, just to get it out there.
And if you found out about it at 8 p.m., that means a lot of people don't know about it,
That's why we want.
So it would be great to, find ways to either work with this organization or work in ways to, work in outreach, for example, for these topics, since you are aware of all the problems and how they cross connect in these different issues. So I think that you found out this at 8 p.m. last night is a good thing to know, and a good way to kind of take this to the next step. So that's great.
And just real quick, there's a lot of urban farming experiments that are occurring in the city. It's actually a really exciting time for urban and rooftop farming. And there are a number of urban farms in Bushwick, for example, right? I would love to see if there's any data on the efficacy of urban farms reducing the damages of the urban heat islands, right? Because there's a lot of complexity into increasing the number of urban farms, especially in some of these areas that are most at risk from the heat islands, right? And I almost wonder if the urban farm is the best solution in all cases. And I'm sure there's some data out there on that.
Yeah, that's what we were trying to find.
Actually, one of the slides that we took out because of time constraint was that there is actually more data that we need as far as urban farms goes, because specifically for New York City, because I think because they're pretty new, they haven't been collecting enough data so that they can possibly say that, oh, these are all the ecological impacts. The thing that they measure, the one that we saw in the Chicago study, is mostly on
green spaces in general.
So not generally
really
just urban
farming
specifically, and it's mostly not ecological impacts specifically, just more
the food
social
accessibility and the socio-economical impact.
Okay, very cool.
Great idea. Thank you for presenting.